Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here at NPC Day again. We at OP Games are really happy to be part of NPC Day. It's always been a good mix of builders and people who are thoughtful about the technology and not just building for the sake of building, right? And so this is kind of what we want to share today, what we're doing in OP Games, and and some products that we're working on. So I'll be talking about three things today. First is Spark, which is our new product built on 6551, and essentially focusing on what people have been talking about, NFTs to NPCs. Next, I'll be talking a little bit of our work and how we plan to share them to other folks via the NPC Institute. And lastly, I'm going to be talking about something that we and a few partners like Future Primitive, Kernel, and Radar are trying to build, which is a cooperative around game builders for us to be able to see new kinds of games using 6551 AI and Web3. Yeah, so I want to start with a bit of context. So OP Games, we are game developers who have been in the space since 2004, I would say, so 20 years. I myself am a game developer. My co-founder Chase is a games publisher. And back in 2018, we realized that the game industry has a lot of things that can improve if we use Web3 on it. And, and so we created Outplay.games. So OP Games is actually Outplay back then, so no relation to Optimism, sadly. But yeah, we realized Outplay, which was before based around tournaments, could be something bigger if we think about Web3 more holistically, and that's why we rebranded to OP Games. So some of the work we've done was around NFTs on the Near protocol. We help independent game developers try to find monetization on these NFT markets. But one of the tentpole projects that we have, I would say, is Arcadia, which is our platform, which was also, I would say, got its start by being a 10,000 NFT project. So we created the 10,000 NFT project called the Arcadians, where we were able to raise around $700,000 for mostly for the unsung heroes of the game industry, which are the open source developers like those building game engines like Default, Godot, Phaser. And we also sent out the funds to game communities, the actual people building the games, like JS13K, some art collectives like CryptoPop Art Guild, and some experimental NFT communities like NFDAO. So this is the core of what we are at OP Games. We want to use Web3 really to uplift web developers, web game developers. But aside from that, we also are cognizant of what NFTs can do, right? NFTs are super cool. They're a new primitive that's only doable in Web3. So this is an example game that we did using the Arcadians called Arcadia Arena, wherein your NFTs are characters in an auto chess game. So auto chess, I think, is a genre that really lends itself to NFTs, right? It's a bit, it's not as hands-on, not as real-time, and the slow transactions of the blockchain are kind of factored into the game design. And also, we leaned on the cross-game aspect of NFTs, wherein we have certain games like Blaze Racing, where you can use your NFT as a driver, which defines how the stats of your cards are, and we use them in other casual games. So Arcadia itself is this experimental sandbox for NFTs. We also play around with monetization around tokens, around incentivized actions, play to earn, when that was a big thing. And yeah, and really just focus on how game developers can make use of this technology. And which leads me to NFTs to NPCs, right? So NFTs we feel based on the theme of our conference. Like NFTs were past primitives. They were there and they led to certain game designs which were successful in the previous cycle. Um, NFTs are cool because they have on-chain metadata, they have swappable parts, they can be cross-chain. There are new game designs that we can build on them. We've seen that happen with things like CryptoKitties and these other games like Axie Infinity. And one thing that we also did, as an example, is a cross-game render, which is any NFT, since its data, its metadata is public, the images are also public online. Then you can build a renderer that will allow it to be played across games, which is something we used on Arcadia Arena. And now, like in this cycle, right, as we're here in NPC Day, we kind of realized that NPCs can be a future primitive based around, which can be what our games are based around. And one thing I want to share with everyone is that CryptoKitties, as we all know, was one of the big projects in the previous cycle of NFTs, right? And my sense is it succeeded because it was really designed for the medium. Like CryptoKitties, they have on-chain DNA, which is a small piece of data that can be on-chain. And the game mechanics themselves lead to market transactions, right? So offspring, creating offspring from the CryptoKitties, trading them around is kind of the game mechanic itself. And now that we're leading towards NPCs, so whatever NPCs do look like, whether they become the autonomous agents like Syndicate are building or what I'm going to be showing with our Spark NPCs, we kind of need to make games built around these primitives and kind of need to just to play around, right? And not be trapped into the current game designs that we have. Okay, so which leads me to Spark, which is the new project that OP Games is building. Spark is a verb that we're trying to make happen. So minting is when you mint an NFT, right? But sparking is when you turn an NFT to an NPC. So it's essentially deploying the 6551 of the NFT. And we are, to talk a little bit about 6551, we are building on that because we, as most everyone here, right? We understand that it's a very good standard to build on. It's very backwards compatible, so any NFT out there can be sparked. The Future Primitive team are building cross-chain gameplay around it, so it doesn't matter whether it's a mainnet NFT or a Polygon NFT, and you can use that to play these other games. And lastly, it's open source. So we believe that open source really is the way to go, right? We think Web3 has kind of allowed open source developers and game developers to use the affordances of that to be able to build new kinds of game design. And Spark also uses AI. So that's kind of the main gameplay for Spark. We're experimenting with what LLMs can do for gameplay. And some of these are things we're already seeing right now, like generative art, chatbots, of course, text-to-speech. And one thing we're more excited about is generative gameplay. Like, what if AI was really part of the game design? What if AI was part of the game workflows, similar to how servers are part of the game workflows nowadays? All right, so I'll show Spark. So I created a demo here just so on-chain transactions don't stop. And also, just a side note that everything here is still very early access. So we're building Spark as a mobile-first app. So first you log in with your wallet, which allows you to get into the whitelist. And if you are whitelisted, then you'll be able to use Spark. And from within Spark, you can see all of the NFTs you have. Currently, we're using it in our Arcadians. And if you have your Spark NFTs, which are NFTs wherein you've already deployed the 6551s, then you can see them as NPCs. So this is an example of, I guess, the initial stuff that we're working on. So generative art, of course, is something that everyone is playing around with. In our case, we built our own AI servers. We used open source technology to make these images come to life as video. And we're experimenting more with them and just really trying to figure out how we're going to be able to use them to build more gameplay. So one thing to share is, as we all know, AI services cost quite a bit for now. So we are using something called like the Spark currency for people to be able to just manage how much they use the AI services. And one thing that's unfortunately isn't part of the video is this button up here, which is locked. This is the part where we send the data on-chain. So we use IPFS to store some of this data on-chain. We are also playing around with what kind of infrastructures we could play with Web3. All right, so you can see a lot of hallucinations still happen in AI. And that's one thing I also wanted to share. My feeling with game design with this time around is you kind of have to embrace the hallucinations around AI when you're designing games. Because the challenge is you're competing with Sora or you're competing with these other big other AI services, which have so much data, so much processing power that you can't really compete, like, right? So instead of building AI games, we kind of try to hide away the AI. I think we should try and look at games where AI itself is actually part of the game design, and people know that they're gonna get AI results, right, as part of the gameplay. So when you spark your NFT to NPC, one you can do the generative AI part, and also we allow people to converse with their AI or with their NPCs rather. So what we do is we take all the metadata from an NFT, create some prompts around it, and send that over to an LLM. So we're playing around with LLMs. We're using Mistral. We're using some other ones. We're using ChatGPT, which unfortunately is still the best one out there. But as Casey mentioned, right, like we kind of need to figure out how we can build these AI services decentralized. And I'll talk a little bit more about that with NPC Institute. And this is an example of the 6551 that's deployed. So once your NPC is deployed, what essentially happens is we create a 6551, we mint a Spark identity, which is essentially an NFT, which is a subscription token for all the generative AI services that we provide. All right, and just an example of the chat. So we see here the user is chatting with the NPC, saying, "Hey, why are you wearing underwear?" And the NPC says, "That's just part of my outfit. It's a cool one of the cool items I have. You know, how can I assist you?" And another question is, what to use that branch for? It seems a bit flimsy. And he says it's a branch. It's actually quite sturdy despite its appearance. So yes, a bit of improv, a bit of role playing. We feel is what games with LLMs will be. So we kind of are playing around with that primitive. All right, and for everyone who's part of NPC Day, who has the Sora NFT that was sent out by the Future Primitive team, we are providing early access to Spark. So if anyone wants to check it out, just scan the QR code. The screens that I presented should be there, but we are working on a bit more gameplay around the NPCs. One idea that we have is the NPCs are going to interact with each other. We can send them out on quests. They can get items, and those items they'll be using in interacting with other NPCs. And also, if you're an NFT builder, you want to collaborate with us around using generative AI for your NFT projects, just reach out to me at paul@opgames.org. All right, and I want to end with the two other stuff that I mentioned. First is the NPC Institute. So as we're building these games around AI, one thing we realize is it's not so easy building them, right? First, AI servers are expensive. You need to learn a lot of things to be able to build them if you're non-technical, if you're not, or even if you're a game developer and haven't dabbled in AI, there's a lot to learn. So the work that we're doing for Spark isn't just as a product, it's to share with our game developer partners and for everyone who wants to collaborate. So we're gonna be documenting the Spark contract. We're gonna share some of our workflows on AI, how we build the generative AI and the chatbots, and share them on NPC Institute. And one other thing that I'm really excited about is NPC Institute isn't just a technical resource. We want it to be a resource for designers, artists as well. And we've taken inspiration from a previous project called the Game Design Inspirations, where we just think of how we're going to use these NPCs in games. An example is taking inspiration from games such as Stanley's Parable or Baldur's Gate, wherein there's a narrator narrating the game. What would it look like if there are AI narrators, for example, in games that we build, where they kind of break the fourth wall or sometimes hallucinate, just create new things around the things that are happening in the game. So as I mentioned, really try to embrace the randomness of hallucinations, play around with AI, play around with NPCs. And to end, I wanted to talk a little bit about the New Players Cooperative, which is a project that I am building with Future Primitive, Kernel Radar, and we want to take the best in class in governance and funding, and really try to support game developers who want to build NPC games with us. We're trying to build a structure around it. We learn a lot from cooperatives. We learn a lot from what we found worked with Web3 funding. An example is if any of you guys have used Scaffold ETH, which is one of the best frameworks for making Web3 apps. It's funded by something called the Build Stream, which is a stream of Ethereum, which is sort of like a universal basic income for developers. And we kind of want to make use of these kinds of novel funding to really try and build fun games together. But we also want to build a good, strong cohort of game designers who will really learn from each other and make really cool games, right? So we already have 2 teams confirmed. We're just confirming, just dotting, just really making sure everything is all good. But we are looking for one more team who wants to join the cooperative, and I'm kind of talking to people, not just here in ETH Denver, and also in other ecosystems like Solana, who want to just learn from each other and build fun games. So if you are a builder, you want to build fun games with really smart developers, then again, email me at paul@opgames.org. A little bit of the roadmap. We want to do another another NPC Day install in London, where we kind of get these groups together chatting. And yeah, so if any of these excite you, if you want to build stuff around NFTs to NPCs via Spark, if you want to learn around AI, around how to build these AI technologies and build games around it, check out npc.institute. And if you want to be part of the New Players Cooperative, just reach out. Again, that's my email. Reach out to me on Telegram, on Twitter. And if any of you are going to be in ETH Global London, we'll be there talking to a few teams, trying to organize some of the on-chain games folks also to try and just do something similar to what we did in NPC Istanbul, which is get good game developers together, discuss games, build cool games, and hopefully we'll create the next CryptoKitties during this tech cycle using 6551. So yeah, that's it.
Future Primitive